Welcome to the Fitness Plus Technology Podcast for club owners, operators, and fitness professionals. Each week, host Bryan O'Rourke brings you an expert interview with a global influencer at the crossroads of fitness and technology. You gain the insights, tools, and inspiration you need to stay connected to the pulse for what matters most for your business in the age of exponential technologies.
Today, we're going to talk about the emergence of AI in fitness. We're going to give a general overview, but I promise you we're going to get into a little more detail in the coming events. So save your Q&A for the end, or you can key it as it goes, and we'll read some questions for the panelists at the end. So again, thanks for being here. Let's get started. So of course, today we're going to talk about with our panel. I'll introduce them. I'll give you a quick overview of the state of AI today, and then we're going to talk about the emergence of AI in fitness and what it means. And then we'll have some Q&A, of course. And for everyone going to San Diego, self-promotion here. I'll be speaking at 2 p.m., so please come and see me talking about what's next. We'll touch on AI and a lot of things at that talk, so I hope to see you there. Also, Chris, our friend, Chris Stevenson, he's going to be on a panel with some wonderful people, Jared, Greta, of course, Nick and the group on the truth revealed, maximizing your profitability for your fitness business. So please join Chris right after my talk on Tuesday. Will be great to see you. And Ian, I'll introduce both of you in a minute, but Ian's going to be with the Shosabi group. You see the booth number right there, 3565 at Ursa. So go see what AI is doing in the space. Please join our friends from Japan, the Middle East, and the Nordic region who will be there, and others at their booth. So we look forward to seeing everybody in San Diego. Another note before we get started is you're going to see right after this, we're posting the Innovation Awards for Fitness from the Fitness Industry Technology Council in 2023. And of course, our fitness park is our fitness facility, a French group, fantastic. Of course, Philip from eGym, CEO, is our fitness pro, and ABC Ignite is fitness supplier. These are award winners. You'll be hearing more about them. And here are our runners-up, all wonderful people. Pete, congrats. Promotion Vault, congrats. And Bio, congrats. So anyway, that's our introduction. Now let's get started with our panelists. Let's do a quick intro. Of course, Ian Houghton. Thanks for joining us, Ian. With a doctorate in you call it manual, but it's naprapathy, right? Is that how you say it?
Naprapathy. That's right.
With a doctorate in that practice. And of course, you've been handling product development for Mitsubishi and Shosabi for a while now. And you're a very highly credentialed expert in fitness and health. From Norway, and I believe you're joining us from Dubai today. So thanks for being here, Ian. Really wonderful to hear your perspective.
Thank you, Bryan. A pleasure to be with you guys and look forward to sharing.
Thank you so much. Chris, I've known Chris for many years, hell of an operator, award-winning in his operations with his facilities and then also his Empower Group. I know you're joining us from a speech. I know Chris is also on the Ursa board. You're out there in Utah talking to Park and Recs today, right, Chris?
Yeah, out here in Utah. I just finished a presentation this morning, and I'm upstairs at the convention center. Excited to be on this panel.
Well, listen, thanks for making time, guys, and thanks, Jesse, for putting this on. So I'm going to give a quick kind of overview on the state of AI. Of course, we've heard a lot of information about AI recently. I'll talk about a few things relating to that, but, what is AI? And it's a broad term. Here's some examples. We've all been using it for a while, just many of us not evidently. Search engines rely on it. Your Netflix and YouTube relies on it. Of course, we're familiar with self-driving vehicles if you've ever used a Tesla on an interstate. Facial recognition, spam filters. Basically, it's a system that performs tasks. And those tasks are getting more complicated and interesting, as we'll touch on. Please check out the Fitness Plus Technology podcast, because on a number of those episodes, like our recent one with Mo and others, we talk about the kind of rise of AI along with other technologies. So if you want to learn more about that, please check out our podcast on all the major channels, because it is a significant trend. And if you've seen me talk before, I've spoken about the hype cycle, and all technologies go through a cycle where people get very excited about them. And we call that the innovation trigger, with the peak of inflated expectation. A great example of that was driving cars, self-driving cars. Well, as we've learned in the last number of years, having fully autonomous self-driving cars is taking longer than people thought, which is typical. And the same is true with AI. We've heard about AI for many years. I referred to it in prior talks years ago and was laughed off the stage. But you can see now where ChatGPT is, which is natural language processing. You see the little red box. It's going down from the peak of inflated expectation to the trough of disillusionment. And then these technologies get to a slope of enlightenment and a plateau of productivity. And that's where we're starting to come with AI solutions, as we'll touch on. Another thing that's interesting on trends is think about 20 years from now, because true kind of artificial general intelligence, where machines become sentient or self-aware, as you can see, is right down at the lower left corner. That's a ways to go. It's very in the early days, but Ray Kurzweil, in his famous book, The Singularity is Near, says the point where machines are going to start outstripping human intelligence is about 20 to 25 years from now. And check the book out. It's a very interesting read. And we see this with processing power and these platforms like ChatGPT, where when we look at tracking translation, so perfect translation and time to edit, translating one language to another, when you get down to 1 second, you're performing at the highest level of a translator that's human. And we can see the trend here from 2015, where machines were taking over 3 seconds to edit a word and translate it. And now they're starting to go at 2. And we expect within the next 3 or 4 years, they're going to start approaching 1 second. These are examples of how this technology is just radically advancing and the implications of it. Another thing around artificial intelligence is there's different kind of types of forms of it, where we think of sentient general artificial intelligence, which is a very tall hill to climb, and other things like machine learning, where systems are simply analyzing huge pools of data, or neural networks, or natural language processing, which is looking at patterns of language, and that's what the basis of ChatGPT is. So when people use the term AI, it's a generic general term, but there are a lot of other components to it. And of course, as of late, the big talk is ChatGPT, and that's a natural language processing model, which is taking huge amounts of data from the internet, looking for patterns and interpreting it. And we see the results are very eye-opening. At the same time, they can really be weird because the technology is still new and emergent. But be that as it may, when we compare adoption, the time it took to get to 1 million users, we look at Netflix at 3.5 years, we look at Facebook at 10 months. ChatGPT took 5 days. So as we see digital kind of going through the ecosystem of adoption, it is a radical, to say the least. And how these things work, it basically taking large groups of data, collecting them and comparing them, and then optimizing the output, which is what basically ChatGPT does. This is the process it uses, and it's called generative AI. So basically, you've got this database, it's learning patterns, and then you give it an input. Okay, it could be a picture, it could be text, it could be a voice, and then it takes that and processes it. That's where the term generative comes from. It generates something as a result of that input into the system. And if you played around with ChatGPT, you know what that output is. Now, of course, this natural language processing tool is expanding. This week, GPT-4 has come out, so it's going to have greater capabilities, and expect to see these kind of tools continue to be plugged into search, like Bing. You're seeing it with Bing from Microsoft Search. You're seeing it with Google and their efforts. So expect more and more of those types of tools using these systems and platforms. And what can it do? What this is going to do is really accelerate the adoption of the tools. So, for example, in our marketing agency, Moon Mission Media, we've been using tools to generate written SEO content for a while now. And so when it comes now to video content generation for content, we're starting to look at those tools, et cetera. So, generating content, automating analysis like Shosabi, getting inputs from imagery and then processing that in an automated way to give personalized analysis. Another example, automating workflows, things like that. And you really should go to OpenAI if you haven't already and get the tools like Dolly and others and experiment them. It's a lot of fun. Experiment with it, see what it gives you. But from a club or gym operating perspective, I believe, and we're going to talk to our panelists about this, when you look at the competitive components of strategy and how to compete in today's world, mindset, user experience, economics, and execution engines, I've been identifying now for a number of years as the real 4 pillars of competitive capability. And we really think that artificial intelligence is really showing up first in user experience, and Shosabi's solution is an example of that. We'll talk about it in a minute, and execution engines, automation, taking a lot of data, figuring out how to use that. These are areas that I think we're seeing this technology be very emergent right away. And as I mentioned, user experience on the U component of the money principles, listen, onboarding people and using tools to do that better in a more personalized way is an example of AI application. Another is, how you're doing your marketing, where you're executing things in a more automated fashion that helps you do things better, faster as a tool. And what I think people really need to keep in mind, like with all technologies, and I hope, audience, you keep this in mind, is that AI is really a tool. And, we can use it in a lot of different ways. And we're all going to have to ask ourselves the question, what is our relationship with AI going to be? In certain instances, it's going to be embedded in the back end of how processes are, being handled without us really having to think about it, except when we set it up. And in other ways, as our kind of helper, like our helper tool, like with our people who are experts in content and SEO, our video generators. It's not like they're just going to send the machine off to do what it wants to do. They're going to use it as a tool, see what the output is, and apply it and figure out, how can we use this better and better? So think of it as a great tool to use. And, when you think of the entire experience of members today, these tools are going to be applied in lots of different ways. And I've given you a few examples. So we're going to have to ask ourselves the question, where in the member journey do we want to apply AI tools? And this is a real conversation that brands have already been having for a while. And we're going to increasingly be thinking through this. How can we improve our experience? And how can we lower our cost? These are the kinds of questions that we're going to be answering and asking ourselves. So that's my quick overview. I'm going to bring the panelists back up here to have some Q&A. So gentlemen, I'd like to ask you a few questions if you don't mind.
Sure.
So Ian, you've been working on product for Shosabi, which is an interesting onboarding AI tool. Tell us some examples, to the extent you can, of how you're using that tool and how Mitsubishi and you all are thinking about applying that tool from a user perspective, from a client onboarding perspective.
Sure. So we use what you kind of showed previously, the camera vision technology element of AI, where we use that to help estimate bone movement in exercise. So we can essentially read how you're moving and collect tons of data points from that. And when we process them, we can give you live feedback on your form, your exercise technique, and then from that also prescribe you with exercise recommendations and training programs. So imagine that you come to a gym as a new member, you're being onboarded by maybe a machine by itself or with a trainer, and you're standing in front of this interactive screen. You input information about yourself, and then it guides you through this simple movement screen and fitness tests, and it's collecting all this observational data from what it sees and how you perform. And then it provides you with a report and provides you with a training program. And then it encourages you to come back every 4 to 6 weeks, retest yourself and check your progress. So you get this objective eye set that has no biases, that doesn't require resources from the gym, and is a great tool to help personal trainers kind of speed up their onboarding, generate this nice objective training template that they can further customize. So yeah, and super exciting as we get more data. As you're explaining, the kind of the AI component gets stronger, so we can prescribe more hyper individualized coaching and feedback and training recommendations. So it's all very exciting.
It's very interesting, and I know you've baited this, and so this is out in the field. People are playing with these systems right now, and some people think it's science fiction, but it's not, is it, Ian?
No, not at all. No, it's really fascinating how the camera can capture just so much. Even just standing facing it, it shows you in the side view, and it can just immediately tell, like from top to toe, like deviations, and gives you immediate feedback. So it's essentially a coach that's just observing you.
And it's just so cool. Chris, you go all over the place, seeing operators, educating people like you're doing today at your talk. I know you keep up with these tech trends. We have a lot of conversations about it, you and I. What is your impression of these kind of tools, and what do you see going on right now?
Well, I think it's going to be huge. And to your point earlier, there are so many different applications, especially for the AI component, that operators are going to have to decide, where they're going to get the best bang for their buck. I think what is interesting is when the AI kind of first started coming into our space, it was about making people think it was real people doing it. Right. But now everyone accepts the fact that AI is out there, and it's okay to know that this is an AI service and not pretending to be a person. So I think that's been an interesting evolution. But it's funny, you used the word science fiction earlier, and there are parts of this that still, I think, to the normal person that think, no, it's not going to go. No, there's no way. But it is. And I always think like emojis. If 10 years ago I said, hey, I'm going to communicate with you 10 years from now using little cartoons and smiley faces, you'd be like, you would have said, yes, exactly. But most people would say, you're out of your mind. That's never going to happen. But it is. So the bottom line is it's here, and it's going to be the operators that figure out how to use it strategically, to enhance things like onboarding, which we know the better and more comprehensive an onboarding program is, the better the retention and extra spend down the road. But it's a powerful tool. And if you think you're not going to use it, you're wrong. So It's time to get on board.
Well, a lot of people are using it now and they don't even realize it.
Right.
If you have TSA pre-check at the airport, or when I travel internationally now, they're scanning my face to connect me to my passport. Now, a lot of people freak out about that because of privacy, but you think about all this stuff. I mean, this is real stuff. It's happening more and more, and it's going to create a lot of possibilities. And I want to get your input on this first, Chris, and then Ian, very importantly, you. So when we think about possibilities, a little controversial here, are the AI robots going to replace trainers altogether? What do you think is going to happen? I mean, tell me about that, Chris.
Well, it's funny. I think that's another thing. When you say it sounds ridiculous. Like, it's easy to sit here and say, there's no way that anything like that could ever happen. But as we've seen with technology, it happens, and massive change does happen. I am a firm believer that the human component to experience will never be completely eliminated or replaced. Right. I think it's the operators that figure out the best blend of maximizing the power of AI and other technologies, and they're able to combine that with the best possible human experience are the ones that are going to be the most successful. So, do I think it will ever fully replace, human beings? No, but it's going to definitely take up some of the market share at some point. I guarantee it.
Yeah, well, I can tell you that it's already taken over. So my Fitness Pal, I use to track my nutrition, and I don't have to talk to a human. And in the morning, it'll remind me automatically, hey, you didn't log your breakfast. My Apple Watch will tell me automatically, hey, you're running behind your average for workout or steps at this point in time. Or, hey, you didn't, you've made 7 days in a row of hitting your goals, right? I mean, this is becoming more and more embedded, right? Ian, what do you think about that? And do you see trainers being replaced? Do you see, what do you think is going to happen?
Well, I definitely have a strong opinion on this. I think bad personal trainers should be careful. Yeah. If your job kind of is only counting reps and acting as a cheerleader, then you should be aware that some robot is coming to get you. But essentially, no, I totally agree with Chris that the human component will always be a huge value in the interaction between client and trainer. But I do think that we are going to be making tools very accessible for trainers and members, tools that may have been like, say, force platforms or something to kind of measure jump height or power output. All these kind of things that have been looked at as technology, fancy technology, is going to be really readily available. It's going to be connected to all your other wearables. So I think we are used to now collecting lots of data. Yep. And I think at some point we're going to have a powerful enough algorithm to kind of make sense of how it all connects. I mean, what does it mean that you didn't log your breakfast and have your steps in relation to your workout that you're doing? And the prescriptions are going to be more advanced and take into consideration tons of parameters, stuff that most personal trainers can't do, right? Because they don't have access to all that information. So I think we're going to see a really exciting phase of really useful and helpful tools before we need to get to a stage where we feel threatened about our jobs.
Yeah, I agree. And I think you're right, Ian. I believe that there are levels of, you're talking about behavior modification, you're talking about objectivity too, right? I mean, when you have data, because we all have biases, and when you're a trainer, if you have an inclination towards certain things, humans can only do so much. I mean, they can do wonderful things that machines can't, but there are just certain things that machines are going to do better. And as you're pointing out, there's all this data that exists and isn't leveraged. What were you going to say, Chris?
Oh, just to add to your point too, with AI having the capabilities like with Shosabi, for example, that is something that's coming from a human being sometimes might be, sort of unnerving to a new exerciser, where they're perfectly capable with a watch telling you to do something or Shosabi telling you and giving recommendations. Yeah. But they might be insecure because, fitness is very personal to everybody, how we look, how we feel. Having a person say, no, you're not moving correctly, it might be a little off-putting. So I think that's another benefit to AI. It's going to help assist people who might be intimidated by the human part of that experience.
That's right. And it's the quality of output. And as Ian said, I think you're right. I mean, all these data inputs and then plugging them into a system that actually can kind of make sense of all of it is really kind of the next tier that's coming. I agree with you. Please, Ian. Yeah.
One of our missions is to just make personal training more accessible for people. So it won't be long until we have our camera systems and squat racks and on treadmills and in free weight areas, helping provide you feedback on how you are performing the exercise, maybe advising you on whether you should finish your set or continue your set based on the speed that you're moving the weight. So I think over time, we're going to really enhance the user experience in the gym by providing the level of guidance that they want. Obviously, none of this becomes mandatory to use, but if you're uncertain about if your back is straight when you're deadlifting or if your knees are pointing forwards when you squat, there will be some type of artificial intelligence to be able to tell you this and to give you a little heads up or warning when you're deviating. So no, I think it's super exciting, and I don't think people should be afraid of losing their jobs yet.
No, they shouldn't, but it's something to keep in mind. And that's why, if you're in San Diego and, hope to see you there, you need to go by and see technologies that are doing this, like Shosabi and others that are using these technologies, because it's really opens your mind as to possibilities. And the realities are that, we're all battling for labor, that the war on talent and designing our experiences very purposely and intentionally is going to become more and more critical to expanding reach, like you're mentioning, Ian, reaching more people for these services. Chris?
And that is a really practical, applicable point. I will tell you, at the several events I've already done this year, one of the biggest topics is finding and retaining talent.
Yep.
So using these solutions to fill some of those gaps are going to be absolutely essential for organizations to still deliver a great product or service, with the staffing challenges that are out there and not going anywhere.
Yeah. So we have a lot. You see me lean over. I'm looking at the chat, the Q&A thing, guys. So let me get to some of our attendees, and everyone, thank you for being here. We really appreciate you being part of the conversation. So I'm going to read some of these comments and a few questions, if that's all right with our panelists. So Ian Turner, you've said a few things here. We got a few things. Taylor Hinzer. We see a lot of Matteo Carrata. We launched last month our AI-based rep counting. So other people, with different companies are doing it. Hans saying adapting faster is becoming more and more important. Taylor Hinson says, to your point, Chris, yes, Gen Z is more accepting of AI feedback than human feedback. And by the way, Chris, to your point, there's a couple studies by the Navy is one, and DARPA, where they had robot therapists, and the feedback from the therapist was much more accepted but from the robot than from the human. That has been demonstrated, so you're not making that up. Sandy, thank you for your comments. They believe that the data from the helpful tools will be analyzed and compared and improved. They believe machines will be able to analyze movement analysis. So just like robots can do surgery, great point, Sandy, because if you've gone through many surgeries now, or you have a loved one that has, robots are doing surgeries. I mean, this is some of the most delicate surgeries like prostate cancer. Robots are doing it, not humans, because they're more accurate. So she is exactly right. Just like robots can do surgery, I am not so sure that will be necessary down the road for people to be involved. Rob Charlton, thank you, Rob, for being here. His controversial comment are that they totally agree. Can't wait for poor PTs to get out of the business because they're oftentimes not doing us any favors. That's harsh, but I'd love your opinion. Victor, yes, 95% of clients do not like being micromanaged. They want to have fun and be positive. Yeah, they would also like to hear what others, Gary, Cook, others have to say. So great, Professor Thomas Fritz, so much more will be possible and how AIs will be activating their humans. That's absolutely true. I think these are all real things. And now it's up to the innovators, hence our awards we did, people like Mitsubishi and Shosabi and others, to actually take this theory and make it work. Right, Ian?
That's right. We haven't got all the solutions yet, but we've come pretty far in the year and a half that we've started. So we're super excited.
Yeah, and Vincenzo, our colleague from Italy, he says, could AI be an extra boost for home fitness and independent personal trainers? This could be a new opportunity and new threat for gyms. Dan McDonough, putting my time in at Under Armour, we use data to help us make better informed decisions when it comes to prescribing and training. This is just what people are expecting more and more, and it's about quality, delivering more and more quality guidance, feedback that's helpful, and doing it in a way that is objective and also effective, because people are going to listen to it. It's going to be easier and probably more cost effective as well. A couple other last questions, and I'll ask you guys one last kind of question from the panel. We try to keep these things at 30 minutes or less because we respect everyone's time. I don't want to drone on and on for an hour. Before we get into that final one, Benham, for Ian. Okay, how are you measuring joint velocity with free weights via computer vision? Are you using special free weights with sensors, Ian?
Yeah, so currently we're not using free weights. We are just using body weight related exercises, but essentially that could apply also as long as the free weight is fixed on the body, like say a barbell on your back. But that will require some additional sensors, most likely, if we're going to look at moving weights in relation to body, obviously.
Yes. Guy Williams says that we have seen several systems over the years fail because the complexity of staff implementing has limited the system for being successful. Very good input, Guy. How do we not alienate trainers through the threat of replacement and get them to actually use the efficiencies these technologies offer? I want to get my first point in on that. A lot of this is a function of the overall design of the business and how they want the member experience to be. And so, some businesses will use technologies to totally automate things and eliminate people altogether. Other systems will design. Apple's retail experience is a great example. It's a form of self-checkout, but with humans involved. So the idea you don't have to go to a cash register was very intentionally designed in how they use the technology with the checkout, but also had people involved. So how you do that, I think, in any technology adoption is kind of the art of it, where I think Chris and Ian both pointed this out earlier, where it's a function of how you want to design your experience. And for some, it's going to be human trainers augmented by AI tools. For others, it's going to be pure AI tools. And for others, they may not use AI tools at all. Do you all agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, just imagine the emergence now of all these manless gyms, right? So like the 24/7 facilities that don't have anyone there to assist you. I mean, it's an amazing upgrade of service to your staff, to your members, if you can provide at least a digital form of kind of feedback or answering questions or just some kind of guidance. That's right. So but for that segment, I think it's a no-brainer. And obviously you can go to the complete other side of the scale where you want to be hyper human and personalized and nuanced with everything and relationship building. And these are things which obviously AI will take time to fall in love with your robot.
Absolutely. Chris, any thoughts on that?
It's all good. I mean, we're all in this industry because we care about people. We care about health. We want people to, live longer and be able to be happier, take care of themselves, long lives with quality. And this allows us to do that, right? Because we're going to to your point, the three ways. There are people that want just the human stuff, no AI, just the AI, and a mixture of both. And that just allows us to reach more people. We talk about that other 80% all the time. This is going to be what allows more people to take care of their health. And that's why we're all in this industry anyway. So it's a good thing.
It is. And Taylor Hinson kind of brings this up again, agreeing with you all. An opportunity that's not talked about enough is how currently the small percentage of big box members actually get programming for their club. To Victor's point, it's like 5% maybe actually get personal training for a club. And so you're right. It's about really giving a lot more guidance, a lot better. Well, not always better, but oftentimes better, or at least comparable, without human intervention. Well, listen, thank you all for being here. Let's wrap up. And I'm going to do one last plug for our talks here coming up next week. Ian, any advice for people, and how can they get a hold of you at Shosabi at the event coming up in San Diego?
Well, if you're at the event, obviously, please come and visit the booth. It is a really unique experience to see yourself move on the screen through we call it point cloud avatar. Just see how quickly it reacts to your movement. I hope people get to experience that firsthand. Otherwise, through our website, shosabi.com, obviously shoot us an email and we'll get back to you.
Thank you, Ian. Thank you again for being here. It's wonderful to see you. Chris, what are your thoughts?
It is going to be the operators who adopt the quickest that are the most successful, because it's coming, whether you like it or not. Things change. Ironically, I was going through some old photos, so there's a change, right? Like actual photos, and I used Scannable to scan them, and now have digital. So I'm like, think about how that's changed over the years. But I found one in a previous life. I did stunt work, and I did motion capture for a video game. This had to be close to 20 years ago. Yeah, they had like 12 white balls, like all over, and they captured it. Now, when you watch these video games that my kids play, you're having motion capture all through the smile. It was just like joint movements. Now it's through the smile, the winking, the breathing. I mean, it reminded me of how things change. So they're going to change. Sometimes it sounds unbelievable, like robotic personal trainers, but it will happen. So it's just the people who adopt early in a very strategic way are going to be ahead of the curve and the most successful.
Yes, no, I agree.
Can I just fire one last thing there? So building on that, Chris, imagine instead of when we say robotic trainers, it might not be like a physical robot, but it's probably going to be you're wearing your thin sunglass looking, reading glass looking, augmented reality glasses, and there's going to be like a hologram of Arnold Schwarzenegger or whoever you want standing next to you, shouting literally cues about knees out, chest up, put on more weight, right? So it is, it's pretty amazing.
It is amazing. It is amazing, Ian. It's a wonderful world ahead. We look forward to seeing everybody at URSA. If not at URSA, I'll be at FIBO at the European Health and Fitness Forum and at the World Active Forum events in Cologne. I know Ian will be there too. And please come see me Tuesday at 2:00 for What's Next. And right after, my friend Chris, he'll be there at 3:30 talking about all good things on profitability and operations and more. And Ian will be at the booth. So go see Shosabi, and a great example of how AI is here now, helping clubs do a better job for their members. Thank you all for being here, and look for our follow-up AI webinar content where we're going to get a little more specific on some things that might really wow you. So thanks everybody from around the world joining us. Always a pleasure. I hope you found this content available, and thanks to both of the panelists.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Have a great
pleasure.
Hello, listeners. This is Bryan O'Rourke, and thanks so much for listening to the Fitness Plus Technology Podcast. The podcast is made possible by the Fitness Industry Technology Council, a consortium of global brands working together to enhance the adoption of technologies in the fitness space. Our company, Videri Ventures, which is invested in Vertimax, Montezuma, Gold's Gym, Houston, Texas, and Fitness 24/7 Thailand, also underwrites the podcast, along with our service companies, Integris Advisors, Moon Mission Media, and others. Please feel free to share this podcast with your colleagues. And if I can be of any assistance to you, don't hesitate to reach out, brianko'rourke@gmail.com, or find me on any of the major social networks. Have a great day, and thanks for listening.